Nick, say I was a event marketer. I work for a corporate company, right? And I'm in charge of my company's trade shows, the host event, activations, executive dinners. I'm running all these things year round. And I know you personally, and I say, Nick, I want you to consult me. I need help. Where would you start with me? Right? Like if I say, I don't know anything about I don't know how to apply it to my job, to my company, to our trade show booths, our events. How would you consult me? How would you help me? Where would you have me start? What would be ground level for me?
Yeah, I mean, if it's list building from not just lists of cities or whatever, but lists of finding commonalities between groups of people. If you're going to put together dinners, or if you're going to put together smaller engagements, who is talking the most? You can drop 100 LinkedIn accounts and say who is, like, what are the topics that are
When you
rising in
say
here?
when you say drop in, what
Yeah,
does
yeah, you
that
can
mean?
cut and paste that into like a chat GPT and say, here's 50 LinkedIn's, sort these by their hottest interests, the interests that are the most meaningful
Okay.
to those people.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden you're putting together a group of people who likely would get along together really well, or the people that, or their seniority or industry or whatever criteria you want. And then all of a sudden you're list building in a way that's more meaningful for you to create connections with people that would want to be together, and therefore your ability to create these like small dinners or things like that become more valuable. Or the most active people on there, and then you determine, well, if they're the most active, they're probably people that are uh, maybe more interested in what they're doing, or they're not just sort of coasting, and they're whatever, that's a persona that's interesting to you. So like that stuff is really interesting. I find that a lot of the AI technology, or generative AI specifically, technologies are good for increased potency of messaging. So you can keep iterating on your messaging to say, get it more concise, get it more, tell me why somebody wouldn't like this, then what are the flaws in this, and just get it better and better and better. So like your messaging for those people ends up being a lot better. I
So you're
use
saying on that specifically. Well, let's go back. I like what you said about the dinner thing, right? So say I'm hosting a dinner and it's for a bunch of, we'll say heart surgeons, right? I mean,
Sure.
you can take those people from LinkedIn, you can put them into a chat GBT, right? You can then type in there, you're an event planner, you're hosting a dinner for 15 surgeons, right? Create a menu, create a activity that we would do after, and that would be one way that you're saying would be an easy
Yeah, even
no-brainer
the
for someone to
menu.
start.
Totally. Everything would be, speak to them specifically, right? So you can say,
Yep.
create a menu where every menu item has a tie to their profession, speaks to heart, and then extrapolate. Why did you choose what you did? So then you can say thoughtfully why you chose everything that you did. You could say, what are the hottest topics for this group? What are they
Yep.
sharing the most, et cetera? And every level of this becomes something that has a level of personalization. In that intern scenario, you could do that too. It just takes a lot of time.
Yep.
And now you're getting there, and now you can take it to someone that goes one step further and take it from that B plus to an A plus, because again, everything I just mentioned is current state. It's technology that exists today. Anyone has access to that. So like my other thing I'm trying to
Yeah.
tell a lot of people is if you don't do that, you're sort of, you could struggle and maybe get to that B plus. That's where everyone else is starting. The opportunity for innovation happens after that, true creativity. And that's the separation of, like, the question I get asked probably the most is, all right, all this horsepower that exists, all this intelligence with AI, where are we going to sit? And
Yep.
that to me ends up being, right now, my working hypothesis is true human creativity, meaning like doing something no one's ever done before, combining things that have never been combined for something that's never been done. Empathy, probably the most important, and humanizing everything that you do and making it, rooted in humanity. So I think we're going to have a sixth sense for content and things that are created on AI, and we're just eventually going to get numb to it that doesn't have some human component into it. And lastly, that domain expertise, like the things that we say in events. I could say Pantone color of the year, Shivari, BEO, wiping things down for viruses. I could say all these, crazy disparate things that you'd be like, did you know that's all our language? Like we have to all think about things like that. But, surgeons wouldn't. And they would have different terminology, different acronyms of all the acronyms that we have. So that understanding of like what's true in this world, like being able to go back and forth and sort of read a room, we're really good at that too. So if you do that, and you know your audience and you know your community really well, you're extremely creative because you're doing things that no one's ever done before, and you're doing all that with a sense of empathy. The AI sits there to get you to that point where you can start doing that work. because otherwise you're list building and you're menu creating and all that other stuff that you're starting from
Yeah.
scratch on. You don't have time to do it.
It sounds to me like the way I view it is for a lot of people, AI is going to be like, and this might be a bad way of view like analogy, but it's like the new Excel. You have to
Yeah,
learn how to use it to do your job. It will become mandatory to do your job. You'll have to be able to use it. So I think that's a good piece there. The second is I love what you're saying about like the B plus to an A. Like what you're doing is you're using AI to speed things up, to give you a foundation to then go create from, right?
yeah,
You're creating off of what it's giving you. It's not
yep,
going to give you the big idea. It's not
nope,
going to give you the connecting of the dots because it's only going off of information that's already available. It then allows you to then potentially be creative and go connect the dots. I think visually there's some interesting things going on. I was using a tool the other day, talking to it and taking a picture of my backyard and the porch, having it transform it and show me what the options are. Cause I don't even know where to begin.
I'm
Right.
like that
So,
with my car. A certain light
yep.
came on. I took a picture of it with Dolly, and I was like, "What's wrong with my car?" In
Mm,
that language, and it was like, "It's
wow.
this."
I mean,
I
yeah,
found
like,
Waldo once. I was like, "Where's Waldo?"
yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
And then I love the other piece that you said about messaging, right? I'm a huge believer that when it comes to events, when it comes to trade shows, you know, as a host, as a trade show manager, whatever it is you're doing, one of the biggest questions you have to ask yourself is what is the message I want to convey to my customer, to
yeah,
my audience? And I think AI is now a tool to be able to do that. And I would even, just as I'm talking this through with you, I'm even thinking further of like part of the problem that event people have is at their core, they're not marketers.
I agree. I
So they
they're
have to go through
hospitality people, in my
yeah,
opinion.
they are.
They're
They're
people
planners, they're
people,
hospitality. Yes, it's completely different.
and
So they're having to get the messaging from marketing.
totally. Those are great skills, by the way. I think that like the translation, the most exceptional experiential organizers or planners are the ones that speak a little bit of marketing, but they're different
Yeah.
languages,
Yep.
and
They
being
are.
able to even translate what you do in the form of KPI and say, look, I know that this dinner with prime rib is better than if it was with chicken. Put this in terms that a CMO or better yet, a CFO would
Yeah.
recognize, right? And it's like it would say, well, look at your data to be able to tell you that what your customer lifetime value is, or your sales cycle gets shortened for attendees who have had the opportunity to have beef. Like, even if you say you're going into your event with that mindset, like I'm going to track this moving forward of this, dinner, whatever we went with the heightened dinner versus the medium dinner, and then I'm going to track to see if my sales cycle is days, weeks, whatever shorter, or if there's an increased, amount of trust that shows up in customer lifetime value. Look, I'm using terms that they appreciate and they respect,
Mm-hmm.
and they
Yes.
might be listening now. And I think that they don't listen sometimes to organizers in the C-suite because the terminology is sort of soft. It was a good
Yeah.
event. It's just soft, sort of nothing language. It's
I
right.
think,
You just got to prove it.
yeah, I think one of the things that makes me think about is like, if you're hosting a dinner, if you're hosting a fireside chat, if you're doing something as a part of your event or whatever it may be, those dinners and those events are going to look different for a group of 20 engineers versus 20 maybe event marketers. Event
Yeah.
marketers are just going to, in general, be more outgoing. It's a different vibe, different energy. So you're able to use this information to come up with ideas to sort of outlay what things should look like in a more relative manner, is maybe
Yep.
the term, right?
Mhm.
Meaning having things make sense. Like it's going to look different for a bunch of surgeons. I mean, surgeons are just quirky, weird cats. They just are. I mean,
I
I've
mean,
met
I'm
a
looking
ton
at
of there.
it's
It's
crazy. They're
just how it
look,
works.
they're very different in events, and like I have the opportunity to look at
Yeah.
back end data of like room energy of different industries as they consume content and in real world settings, and surgeons specifically are ones where we've been looking at the data, and there's a common belief that the shorter the session, the more the higher energy, the more people are with it.
Mhm.
Turns out, at least so far in our experience, interacting with this audience, they love a 2 hour session. Their energy levels are sustained so much longer. You see dips in energy as things go on in other arenas. They're like all in for 2 hours, because what they do is so nuanced and they're so
Yeah.
geared towards deep learning that they're different personas. So treating everybody the same because you don't have enough data
Yeah.
is a huge flaw too.
I mean, just imagine that same 2-hour session with a bunch of CEOs and entrepreneurs. I mean, you'd lose them.
15 minutes in.
Gone, and yes, they're gone.
Gone.
They're on another planet. They're in
Yeah.
their phone.
Emails
They're
are getting
doing
done.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, completely different.